Hi friends, my name is Jess. I am Miss Illinois 2023 and I'm going to be showing you how I took this $6 pair of jeans from Goodwill and I actually made a top and a pair of shorts out of it. And I wore the top to a Miss Illinois event. So first I started with the pair of jeans and I'm going to go ahead and cut them right where I would want my shorts to sit, but maybe 1 to 2 inches lower because they're going to kind of flip up on the ends. And I don't show much of the shorts and how I made those. This is really the only clip I was able to get that day. But just make sure it's really important to cut 1 to 2 inches below where you actually want them, because you can either sew up the hem on it or you can kind of roll them up like I did. You'll see that. So I'm going to cut on one side, I'm going to fold it in half and then cut across. And to actually do the hem of these, you can flip them up and then sew all around, or you can leave them really raw and uncut, kind of like I did. So whatever you're feeling, but you can make a whole outfit out of this for $6. So yeah, I'm going to kind of narrate the rest of this and you will be able to see how, as a title holder, I don't have to spend $2,500 on outfits for everything. This whole outfit cost maybe $20 with all the materials, but the pair of pants in itself was the basis that you needed, and you could have just left it with just the $6 cost from Goodwill, which I believe I actually got this on a day where the blue tag was half off, so it was $3, which was absolutely insane. So here I finished cutting the shorts and you can see them on, and then you can see I took the legs of the shorts and I was just kind of pinning them around for how I wanted the top. So the legs are actually pretty much all used for the top, minus the zipper, which you're gonna see me add later on, but I'm just kind of placing if I wanted one shoulder, two strapped, whatever. There's no real pattern for how I decided to place the pants for the top. This is completely up to you. So also you can see my kitchen in the background. Real life as a title holder. I don't sugarcoat anything. I like to keep it authentic. So here you can see me taking what's called a seam ripper. And these come in the typical sewing kit. You can get at Walmart for $2 to $3, or if you don't have this, you can actually just cut down it with a pair of scissors or cut the seam out entirely. So I first started ripping out the seams on just one side because I wanted to open up the piece of fabric, kind of like if you were just to make one cut down the middle. You don't have to use a seam ripper if you don't want to. Let me see, I turned it inside out. Oh yes. Yeah, so I really just wanted to make a really big open plane of fabric. And again, this is completely up to you. And keep in mind that these jeans also had rips in them, so I had to be really mindful of when I was placing the fabric of where the rips were going to be, especially because I was not going to use any sort of fabric underneath it. So to use a seam ripper, one side has a sharp end, one side has kind of like a little ball, and you can see the sharp end on top, and you actually place the little ball side down inside the seam you're trying to rip. So that way it doesn't tear the other fabric behind it. You can just kind of run it through. And again, I'm not the best at this. I'm not a professional by any means, but I'm just teaching you all the tips and tricks that I have learned in my sewing journey. In a second, you are going to see me kind of pull it up close. I'm going to try and start and stop these recordings so I can see what's coming up and what's next. And hopefully as I do more of these videos, my recordings will be a little more streamlined. But for now, I'm going to try and walk you through every single step of the process for what I'm doing. And again, seam rippers are not my forte, so if you're having trouble with it, you're like, I don't know what's going on, definitely just take a pair of scissors and cut straight down it. It is not going to be an issue. So you can see a little bit up close, you see the red ball, you see the seam I'm ripping out, so you'll actually insert that red ball into the seam, and then you're going to move it straight across, and that is what's going to pop out that seam and allow you to open up the fabric. This is also great for if you're just sewing and you mess up a seam and you really just want to start over. I've done this quite a few times on many pieces of fabric and even on Velcro that I've been sewing for my various flags that I've done for shows. So don't feel like it's the end of the world if you mess up a seam, it's a little bunchy and whatnot. I do it all the time. And throughout this video, you're going to see some shorter clips of me sewing, and I'm also kind of getting the feel of that I need to shoot more horizontally rather than vertically, so I'll keep that in mind for the upcoming videos. But if you have any questions or specific things you'd like me to try and recreate with using just items at Goodwill or things at other secondhand shops, please let me know. I would be happy to do that. I actually did not get a video of me ever opening that up, ironically. But here it is, opened up, and then I kind of pinned it on a mannequin to see how I wanted everything to lay, how I wanted it to wrap around, and you can see the jeans are opened up here. And I wanted it to almost come to a point at the top. So now I'm just going through and I'm sewing down those edges, anything where I need to connect two pieces of fabric. And also I believe this is the top where I rolled it over and then I just sewed it down. And I'm going to fast forward through this so you can kind of see at the end. So next you'll be able to see what all I had sewed down. You can see all the seams there. I had sewed them down, and I even sewed where those pieces kind of crossed over at the beginning when you saw on the mannequin. And that excess down there was stuff that was a little too long. So here I'm just reinforcing those little creases where you saw it overlap. I always pin things down with little push pins like this. Some people use clips, some people just freehand it, whatever works best for you. Then I was taking a zipper. So you're going to want to install your zipper. Remember the facings the correct way. So we want it to zip from the outside. So here I was taking the folds and kind of matching it up, lining it down. And then you can see at the top, I actually hand sewed, so just wrapped it around a bunch of times, these little pieces at the bottom to give the zipper a stopping point, because I cut the zipper just with some scissors. It was a little too long, so I just wanted to give it that stopping point there. So that's what I was doing. This is really important. You do not have to use any kind of special machine to do this. I do it all by hand. I even pulled those off with a pair of pliers I had laying around. So here you can see where I'm planning on putting them. Those are the extra flaps, which I eventually will be cutting off. But here is the zipper. This is actually a different one than what I just had. Not sure what happened here. Here's the right zipper. All right. So you can see what happened here. I did kind of run through the ends of that with my sewing machine so they wouldn't fray off. And then to add those to your piece, you will actually just sew them down at the pieces where I'd pointed out earlier. You can see here all the extra fabric I had. So with the back and the zipper, you can see that again, I just sewed right along the edge, and I'll do a better video on how to sew in a zipper. This video right now is just kind of getting you guys to see what I'm doing, how I'm taking the different pieces, mashing them up, and it's kind of a full view. You could see how it's kind of bunchy though on the outside. It's kind of poofy, and I wasn't a fan of that. So I was going to try and pull out the sides a little bit to try and even that out. And now you can see how I kind of pulled that up at the sides where it's kind of bunched up right there, and I'm going to go ahead and pin that. I'm going to pin it from the outside, and then once it is all pinned up, I'm going to go ahead and try it on, because again, this mannequin is specific to my measurements, but I know not everyone has that, and sometimes you have to try something on, or sometimes you're doing it on yourself. So again, measurements are best. Mannequin, is also great, especially when it's just one person. You don't have anyone else to pin up something, which was me in this case. I didn't have a friend that was able to come over and help me pin this. So I'm here, and I'm just pinning these extra things at the side. I'm going to create a seam over here, and I'm going to do it on both sides so it doesn't pull the fabric to one side or the other and shift the design from being centered to the left or the right favoring on the front. And you'll see it in a second with me tried it on, and you'll see that I even pinned up where the jeans overlap in the front, and I also cut off the bottom, that excess down there. You can already see how much smoother it is. So in a second, when it pulls to the front, you're going to see where I even tried to bring it up and pin it in the front just a little bit. You can kind of see at the top right there. I moved that second panel down just slightly. We're going to have a little bit more of a seam, but that's okay. I'm still loving the design and what's going on right now. And there's a shorts I was rocking with too. So here I'm going to show you kind of what I do. So I reversed it, so I flipped where everything is. And to do that, I had to mark it up, and then I just pinched it back up, and then on the inside, and that's how I created the seam I was going to sew down. And here it is, all sewed down after I remarked it. You can kind of see a little more of the inside, how it's coming out. Looking pretty good so far. And there's the front I just have to re-sew. to kind of, again, try and keep it from bunching at all. And then I decided I wanted to add some fringe. So I pinned all this fringe down. I was like, I think I like it. I was feeling the fringe that day. I don't know. It's fun. You get to play with it a little bit. So here I even decided maybe I want to add some iron-on appliques. Didn't want to do that, but that's an option. And then I also decided maybe in white. Wasn't feeling it for me, but I do have that white, so I might end up doing something cool with it later. So here you can kind of see how I decided to lay out the black fringe. You start with your lowest layer first, and I went ahead and pinned it down so it was a straight line across, cut them out, and then you're going to layer them going up, starting from the top to bottom, so that way when you sew over it, you don't accidentally sew under a layer you've already placed down. And I always roll over the edges just a little bit, so that way there's no random things that are going to catch. And I ended up sewing the top part. I used a zigzag stitch. Most of these stitches were just a regular straight stitch, but I used zigzag for this. You can see at the corner it didn't quite line up at that right side. I wanted more of something that would match that seam, so I'm going to cut off that right corner right there, just so it kind of matched the pattern a little bit better. So I gave it a haircut, which was fun. There you go. Always move around when you're using fringe, and there it is on the floor. Here you can see I added in one of the seams we ripped up, and actually ended up cutting out. I used it as a strap. I ended up not wanting it to be strapless, so these are just some extra fabric I had. And again, I actually really liked the fringed look that was on the straps, or else I would have cut it off. Here is the final outfit, and again, you could have worn it with the shorts. It was a little cold that day, so I wore it with some jeans I had, but I'll be going over in other videos how I really sewed on the zippers and a few other things, but I was loving the fringe look. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I am so excited to see what y'all make and hopefully my other creations.